Welcome to AstroTwins Radio, your cosmic GPS for life, love, and everything written in the stars. We're Tali and Ophira Edut, the AstroTwins, here to decode the astrology of the moment and help you navigate your destiny like a pro.
Okay, it's the week of May 19th to 25th, and there is a lot of change happening, a lot. And I mean, this is already coming on the heels of last week, which was intense. That Scorpio full moon was a doozy. And then we had the Uranus meeting up with the sun in Taurus on Saturday last week for the very last time in Taurus. Everyone's been tired that I've been tired. It's been a lot. It's been intense.
Like a circuit blowout for people.
And the good news is we get to recharge those circuits this week because Gemini season starts, hey, on Tuesday. And then
May
Thursday,
20th.
Tuesday, May 20th. And on Thursday, May 22nd, we have a fire trine between Mars and Venus. But the big news of the week will be on Saturday, which we're going to talk about a lot today.
Saturn's day. And it is. That is the day that Saturn makes its first move into Aries since 1999. And oh boy.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a change. It's been in Pisces since 2023. So
March 7th, 2023. And it's one of, this is one of our divine pendulum planets this year. There's 3 outer planets that are swinging back and forth between 2 signs. Well, Saturn is one of them. It's moving into Aries from May 24th until September 1st of this year. Then on February 13th of 2026, it's going back again into Aries for 2 solid years till April 12th, 2028. But we're getting a taste of it. We're getting a preview. Neptune moving into Aries as it did March 30th until October 1st of this year. Then about 2 months, less than 2 months, Uranus is hitting Gemini from July 7th to November 7th, swinging back to Taurus for one last hurrah. Then next April 25th, goes into Gemini for 7 years. So we have this taste of this new energies.
a tasting menu of the second half of the decade, basically, this spring and summer.
A little amuse-bouche. But let's start with Gemini season this year, because Taurus season has hopefully been a chance to at least ground your nervous system a little bit.
We had no retrogrades except for Pluto, which is an annual outer planet retrograde that has a much milder effect than the ones we experience in the first quarter of the year, for sure. And this is the last Gemini season that we'll have for a long time, with Jupiter in Gemini for part of it until July 9th. So, until June 9th. So between May 20th, this Tuesday, and June 9th, really make the most of your conversations or communications, any big visions or goals, because the sun and Jupiter together are giving you some extra power to take a chance, take a risk.
And if there's some partnerships or collaborations that you have in mind with people, especially on a one-off or short-term basis, while the sun and Jupiter are in Gemini, it's like a really good time to make the pitch, invite people to join up with you, see where your synergies lie, see where your skills dovetail. Okay, the one thing I will warn against with Jupiter and the sun together in Gemini is exaggeration. We love to sell, hype things up, but if you're going to put your stamp of approval on anything, if you're going to stand behind something, make sure it's legit. Make sure you're not glazing someone or something.
Glazing. Is that an actual thing?
Yeah, that's a new term. I don't know.
Okay.
The
Tali always knows the new
I
terms. Glazing.
I don't even know if I'm using it correctly, but if you're putting a little glaze on things that, cover up or maybe don't deserve the shine, just just be mindful of, because your name will be dragged through the mud potentially. The receipts will come as they always do. But there's a lot fewer receipts for the next month. I think we can expect the circus to churn up again, unfortunately. There's going to be a lot of double talk, a lot of, stretched truths. Don't you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, I think the sun and Jupiter together in Gemini we're all excited. We have big ideas. So yes, there probably will be a lot of glazing. Know when it's time to glaze and when it's time to use the matte finish, I guess, on the things you're talking about there. Um, Also, Gemini rules transportation, and we are actually going to be in the Motor City in our hometown of Detroit for Summit Detroit, which, if you're interested in coming to an amazing, deep, curated experience of Detroit with some of the best thinkers on the planet, head to astrostyle.com/events. And I think there's still time to apply. There's probably a few spots left open, but it's going to be really interesting to spend the final days of Jupiter and Gemini in the Motor City. If you're somebody who is looking to buy a car or a bike or change the way you do transportation, or I mean, in general, Gemini is local travel, communities, neighborhoods. So I'm super curious to go back to our hometown after not living there since the last time Saturn was in Aries, actually, is when we left Detroit. So we're returning for the next Saturn and Aries round. The future of transportation and that kind of thing is definitely probably something that we're all going to be talking about. Homes and communities as Jupiter gets ready to move into Cancer on June 9th. So I don't know, electric cars. I think that those topics are going to be, with all the tariffs and everything going on. I don't know. I just feel like I need to say that there may be some opportunity to look into how you get around with public transportation or your own car or that sort of thing, as cars are probably going to become unaffordable with tariffs and everything else, however that all shakes out. So
Who knows though? I feel like the
who even
Jupiter
knows?
Jupiter
Yeah.
and the sun in Gemini could also totally bring, "Oh, we're calling off the
We were
tariffs." And we
just
are seeing
kidding.
some
Oops.
very bizarre and unanticipated collaborations happening too around the world. And
Mhm.
there's talks scheduled with Trump, Russia, and Ukraine, with Putin and Zelensky supposedly. He's been visiting Arab countries. Now he and Bibi don't seem to be palling up, but you never know. So I think this week is also going to bring more shifting or curious alliances and
Moving, shifting, all that. We
head spinning, like autocrats on autopilot
The
kind of
news. The
thing.
news feeds are gonna be busy between now and June 9th too, that's for sure. But yeah, I don't know. I do think that the shakeup that people, because also Gemini is ruled by Mercury, which was the god of commerce and the mail and the postal system. So anyway, the way we shop and get around and go through life, I think it was enough to scare people into thinking, "Hmm, I need to be a little less dependent on certain things." The power grid going out in Spain and Portugal.
I just saw an article on deconsumption, how
Okay.
there's a new movement. And I've been saying that, like, flaunting your wealth is now going to be uncool in the age of Aquarius, which I think is not a bad thing at all. But yeah, there's deconsumption, like the new minimalism essentially. But like, why am I buying all this shit? I don't need all this. Why do I keep getting all these things? So kind of
Right.
adopting that, French girl aesthetic where you actually wear the same dress 3 times a week that we heard about, and same,
God, I'd love to do that because Do
God,
you
I
do that?
do
I
do
just
that,
don't
man.
do that. Yeah, I was like, wait, I'd love to do that on camera. Yeah.
Yeah. But the move towards deconsumption may come. Jupiter moving into Cancer on June 9th. We'll talk about that more in a couple of weeks. But, Jupiter is in detriment, not its favorite place in Gemini, and it's exalted in Cancer, which is its absolute favorite place, weirdly, because Jupiter is the traveler and Cancer is the homebody. You'd think Jupiter would like being in Gemini, but Jupiter's more philosophical, big plans, worldly travel, and Gemini is a bit more scattered, the local energy, the day to day vibe. And I think that, Jupiter feels a little like it can't quite get to the big stuff it wants to handle while it's in Gemini. In Cancer, it kind of gets to relax, step back, make itself at home wherever it is, take home on the road. I think with all the, fear that people have around, being deported when they're just visiting the United States and or having their cell phones snatched from them, I think people are
Very
going to do
Gemini.
a lot more national travel. The national parks are going to be crowded in the United States, although
Which is terrible since
understaffed.
they've had their staffing cut. Oh
Get the
Lord.
bear spray. Get the bear spray. I don't know.
This yeah, really. This is going to be an interesting summer, and we're going to talk about Saturn and Aries over the summer in a minute. But first, let's cover that Venus Mars trine this week,
So
which
lovely.
is good for love and fire signs. Love could be heating up, some passions. Hey. So Venus and Aries forming a harmonious 120-degree trine angle to Mars, lusty, spicy Mars and Leo. So all we're saying is, cat scratch fever could be on. I don't know.
And this is the third of 3 Mars Venus trines we've had since the beginning of the year, but the other 2 were in water signs. First one when Mars was retrograde in Cancer and Venus was direct in Pisces. I think that was January 25th. And then we had another one when
March, right?
March, when Venus was retrograde and Mars was direct in Cancer.
Right. This is the first retro. Yeah, neither of the planets are retrograde this time, and they're in spicy fire signs. So that could also be a great time to do a revamp of your look, add a little more fun and color to your wardrobe or your makeup routine, your hair, dyeing your hair. And honestly, the the face, everything from the neck up is about to get, the spotlight as Saturn, which rules which brings our focus into a certain area for a couple years, moves into Aries, which rules the head and the face and everything there. It's funny that you mentioned right before we got on, Tali was saying, did you see Kris Jenner's facelift?
I know, I was scrolling and I was like, bodily autonomy, do what you want, but Kris Jenner seems to have had some deep plane face and neck lift and looks sort of like a mashup of Kim and Courtney now. That is kind of bizarre. She's 69 years old. I mean, hey, we are going to see, I think, with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, a Neptune in Aries for the next 14 years. Aries rules the brain, the head, the face, the adrenal glands. So Neptune already with like illusions, I really do think like,
Aries being the first sign, which is youth related, and Saturn being the bone structure, Aries the face, the head. I mean, yeah.
We're going to see people
she
messing
did.
with their faces. But I mean, it looks good. She just looks like she's maybe
49?
35, actually, more like 35. And it's eerie, but I think again, that might become a new normal over the next, at least for the privileged people who can afford it. And yeah, Though
Yeah, I
I
saw
won't
something, someone
comment
was like,
further,
"That's a
even though
six-figure facelift." So, you know.
I know I saw a meme that was like, when the tax return hits the bank account, you know.
Oh gosh.
Anyways, the Kardashians have been, sculpting their faces for much
Well
longer than this, so Chris just had to catch up, I guess. Anyways,
Well, they're figuring into Saturn and Aries because, which I'll cover, Kim Kardashian is making an acting debut this fall, and I believe Kylie Jenner's entering her Saturn return. I don't know about Kendall; she may be also.
I think
Uh,
Kendall's done with hers, but
Kylie
Kylie.
definitely is.
And
So,
so if you have Saturn and Aries, by the way, if you were born between 1996 and 1999 or
7.
1967 to 69, it on those edges, on those beginning and ending years, it weaves back and forth between a couple signs. But if you may have Saturn and Aries in your chart, you should look it up. I'll put the calculator. If you go to astrocell.com, we have calculators on the site, and you can there's one, that shows you, am I in my Saturn return? It'll tell you yes or no, and it'll tell you what your Saturn sign is. For us, it's
mhm.
Gemini. So we've got another 5 years to go before our next Saturn return, thank God. But Saturn, if you have Saturn in Aries, you are starting your Saturn return, either the first one if you're, 96, 99, or your second one if you're late 60s. And if you're late 30s and listening, because you never know, you're in your third one. The first
That's the
one is
1930s, by the
yeah, the
way.
late 30s.
1930s, 1967 to early 69, and yeah, not to be specific, the last time Saturn was in Aries was from April 6th of 1996 to June 8th of 1998, and then it went into Taurus but retrograded back into Aries October 25th, 1998 to February 28th, 1999. And boy, have we found some themes that I'm going to share about
Oh
looking
my God,
back
I'm
at
so
what
excited.
happened in that era.
Let me
That
just
could be a sign
close
of
the
what's to
loop on
come.
this Saturn
Yeah.
return so don't leave people hanging. So
Yeah.
Saturn takes 29 and a half years to do one full orbit around the sun, go through all 12 zodiac signs, and return to where it was when you were born. So if you hear people talking about that, we have a lunar return once a month. The moon comes back to where it was when you were born. The solar return once a year is another way of saying your birthday, because the sun has gone through the whole zodiac and returned to where it was when you were born. The Saturn return happens every 29 and a half years. And there's an exact day that it happens, but for 3 years, you're going to feel it. And Saturn is the personal trainer planet. It's the Tracy Anderson, Gunnar Peterson of the
Mhm.
skies. It's going to make you wake up at 5 a.m., sprint, do burpees, all that, go to Soul Cycle. But you're going to emerge stronger, faster, wiser. So, and the people of Aries suns are also going to feel this. It's a bit of boot camp for the Aries out there. And God, I know, poor Aries, they've been through so much, Chiron in Aries, Neptune, Saturn,
Neptune.
but you're the
Oh,
strongest
no.
sign. So the universe doesn't give you anything you can't handle.
I think
Anyways,
Saturn and Aries will bring more structure and definition and help the Aries really figure out what all this exploration of the last couple years was for. So I personally think it will Saturn gives shape and form and structure. Sometimes it can make you feel restricted, but other times it helps you feel like you know where you're going, like you have a real direction, which would be nice, right?
and
Aries.
Pisces are feeling that. I mean, Chapel Roan, a Pisces, Saturn in Pisces was great for her. It's like her music, that's the thing. And she's starting her Saturn return. She has it in Aries, but
So
as a
she had Saturn in
Pisces,
her
all her
sign, yeah.
work, she worked really hard. She was, we've seen the clip of her playing to this small crowd in a park, playing Pink Pony Club and no one listening. But, then she blew up suddenly because she did the work. She did the work. Justin Bieber, a Pisces who's in his Saturn return too, is struggling.
I saw something like people feel like he's in a cult-like church right now, being influenced by a pastor, which is very Saturn can be like a figure or a mentor.
Father
Yeah,
figure, and he has
so
daddy issues. Well, Haley Bieber will start her Saturn return, so I don't know what's gonna happen to the
good
2 of
luck,
them.
babes, for sure with that one.
Yeah.
Whew, I don't
Mhm.
know. So let's talk about Saturn in Aries coming up. So Saturn is in fall, it's called. It's in one of its less comfortable positions while in Aries. But looking back, what we saw the last time Saturn was in Aries in the mid to late 1990s were some real moments in entertainment and sports. So, entertainment is very Aries. It's like Aries is charismatic and dynamic. And a lot of the entertainment that happened was huge, blockbuster, kind of like and very raw. Like there were rap and movies and TV shows, like the girl power and the real toxic masculinity. We have major sports highlights, tech, space exploration. So, starting with the entertainment, we had South Park, The Simpsons, The Sopranos, The Family Guy, and Crocodile Hunter all came out. I mean, that is so Aries
Wow.
man kind
I
of.
think of, like, South Park being kinda like the obnoxious boy,
Yeah,
jokes. I love South Park.
I love yeah, I mean, they're all funny.
Simpson, yeah, like, a lot of just raw, like, borderline WTF humor there.
Mhm. Yeah, very much, which is
And The
very irreverent.
Sopranos, like, the mob boss, that's kind of the
I mean, Aries is ruled by Mars. It can be very violent. Mars rules weapons and war and sports and competitions and things like that. Fox News debuted actually. Rupert
wow.
Murdoch released it. No comment there. But also the first Harry Potter book, which is about adventure. Um,
Well, Fox News, there is plays to people's anger too,
Yeah,
so
which is very Aries. Aries rules anger. But we had also like women stepping into that girl power era. The Spice Girls debuted with Wannabe, I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. And then we zigga odd or whatever on to Buffy the Vampire Slayer came out with Saturn and Aries. Ellen DeGeneres came out as gay. I tell people, like, when they say, "What was it like to grow up in the '80s and '90s?" It's like, "Well, we thought that Rosie O'Donnell and Ellen DeGeneres were straight." Does that explain anything to you? So,
right.
I mean, it just wasn't even, like
But
didn't even cross people's
identity,
minds.
Saturn is a serious energy. It's also rules boundaries. So like you can it's like a
Defining.
self-definition. It's like
Yeah.
I'm not going to play, hetero anymore here,
Yeah.
cis hetero. I'm gonna own who I am.
And just this morning, I saw something like Kim Kardashian is going to be part of a legal drama that looks very like what Melrose Place was in the '90s, or just her acting debut, I guess, this fall. I mean, it looked very steamy, spicy, but still like the tough women getting revenge as avenging wronged women as lawyers. So that's looking like it's gonna be kind of a girl power version, like glammed up, but don't mess with them because they will take your money. I don't know. And Princess Diana actually died during Saturn and Aries in a high speed chase. So that was that was a big deal too. We lost an icon. Elton John, who was an Aries, came out with Candle in the Wind, his tribute song to her. So we also had Tupac was killed, Jay-Z made his debut album, and Eminem debuted. Slim Shady arrived at the very end of Saturn and
Well,
Aries.
back up. You just sped right over Tupac being killed. Yeah, I mean, are we gonna find out with the Diddy trial going into
Oh,
Saturn and Aries?
right.
There's, people who think he was behind that.
Right. Oh, wow.
And,
Full circle.
so will Tupac's death be solved at last.
As part of this whole
This
thing.
full
Wow.
circle since the
Yeah.
last time Saturn was in Aries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also had the Monica Lewinsky, Bill Clinton impeachment and scandal during Saturn and Aries, and now she's emerged with a girl power type of podcast too,
Yeah.
reclaiming.
Reclaiming. Yeah, it's
So
great.
reclamation scorned women, powerful women who've been burned by narcissistic or toxic men who had power and privileges that uh, predated cell phones and, like we said, receipts that are being kept. So we also had some major sports moments. We had Shaq, Kobe Bryant debuted as athletes. Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, they won 72 out of 80 games at the beginning of
Mm.
Saturn and Aries. The Olympics were in the USA. So there were a lot more major sports moments, which makes sense because Aries is very competitive. Saturn rules, greatness, excellence,
And
the
that
kind of
practice makes
endurance.
perfect too. Like
Yeah.
that, if you did the work, so if you've been doing your work, Saturn is very merit based. So, will we see a firing of Trump's entire cabinet in the next month? I'm kidding, but
Let's
really.
hope so. Yeah.
Or him. Yeah. Will we
Well,
have
there was an
another
impeachment. Let's just leave it at that. So, the
he's
House
ready
of
for his third
Representatives.
one in the House. Yep.
Oh my
Mhm.
goodness, yes. A girl can dream. Then we had the Heaven's Gate UFO cult and their mass suicide also happened. So once again, we do have to be careful of leaders, uh, cult leaders. It started as sort of a religion and UFO cult. So
Justin Bieber, hear us now.
I was thinking, Justin, beam me up, Bieber. So, or maybe
Mhm.
not. We did predict their pregnancy, but you know,
I predict a separation coming. I hate to say
oh
it.
yeah. Oh yeah. And speaking of UFOs, well, let's go to outer space. There were two NASA moments that were very fitting for Saturn and Aries. The Mars Pathfinder on July
Wow.
4th, 1997, landed in the Aries Valley
No
uh,
way.
on Mars, which was, I think, the result of flooding. So it was like a flatter surface where a spacecraft could land. And then at the end, on January 3rd, 1999, the final round of Saturn and Aries, the Mars Polar Lander was launched. So exploration of Mars is going to probably get way serious. We already know that's something people want to do, but Saturn is building an architecture. So I would not be surprised if some kind of structure, experimental structure, starts to be built. Please, God, don't let it be the Trump Musk real estate conglomerate. Actually, I just,
Please
who,
let it be, and then they can relocate
yeah,
there.
okay, that's fine. They can try out breathing in Mars
Mars-a-lago, ha ha
atmosphere.
ha.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I like that. Good one.
Mars-a-lago. Yeah, let's see it.
Mar-a-Lago, better than, yeah, I'd really like to get back to to thinking about trips to Florida without having to imagine orange anything outside of a
I
spray
think that
tan.
ship may have sailed besides a few select cities, just saying.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but Mars-a-Lago may actually be a reality by the end of Saturn and Aries. Actually, you know who showed up
At
in my
least
feed?
Neptune and Aries, yeah.
Yeah, Neptune and Aries. Adam Newman, there was a whole thing about how people keep throwing money at him. He's a Taurus. He's
The
had
WeWork
Uranus.
guy, yeah.
WeWork Adam Newman, who's a Taurus, right on the cusp of Aries. And people keep giving him money for this real estate project called Flow that really is a whole nothing burger. But I don't know. I wonder if he's going to be part of whatever this is. It's with
What is
astrology, we can
Flow? Like some
speculate.
communal, like apartments, kind of like dorm
Yeah, what
living sort of
happened
thing?
is that he rented all the WeWork spaces, and even though he walked away with billions, he also, um, didn't own anything. So then he took some of his money and started buying properties, some of which he's already sold off. So I don't know, but he can go to Mars. That's all I'm saying. Saturn
Yeah.
and Aries can take him to Mars.
I think it'll at least come up with the blueprints, but I doubt we'll be on Mars by 2028. But Neptune and Aries till 2039 with
Yeah.
Pluto and Aquarius. I mean, who knows? When
Who knows?
Uranus
I
goes
don't know.
into Gemini, it's going to speed up. We're going to see an
Yeah.
accelerating, especially in 2026, in a quantum and quantum computing, but a quantum acceleration of
It may be a
science
small
and tech.
structure there on Mars, but I feel like there's some sort of station that isn't
How
there
much does a
now that's
gold
going to end up
toilet?
there.
Yeah, how much does a gold toilet weigh with on Mars? Because the gravity
Someone
is
Google
different.
that, okay?
Can
Drop
you
it
get
in the
gold
comments.
leaf to Mars? I don't know. Just curious.
Well, the last thing, I mean, for now, we're going to be mining Saturn and Aries quite a bit for the summer. There was a lot of tech stuff that happened too. Everything's very competitive. The browser wars between Internet Explorer and Netscape were waged. I don't think people use much well, no, they do actually. And Steve Jobs, who's a Pisces, was named interim CEO of Apple during Saturn and Aries, and then became the CEO right as Saturn left Aries. And Microsoft bought Hotmail for $400 million. So there was a lot of development there. So whatever the Web 3.0 AI version of this is, we can expect to see like who's going to buy Perplexity, who's going to buy OpenAI, the AI wars, Google, Gemini, that kind of thing. So especially when Uranus goes into Gemini July 7th to November 7th, while Saturn's in Aries, we can expect to see a lot of like real competition around
And
gaining that market share in technologies. So
we got to go back to the 60s a little bit too, because 1967 was the long, hot summer of 1967, where more than 150 race riots erupted across major cities in the United States. So that was also, there were riots happening. There was the Vietnam War
also in
protest.
Detroit, where we're going back. So
yeah, that was
all
July
that history.
23rd to 31st, 1967. That was one of the worst riots in U.S. history.
Yeah.
There were the Paris student riots as well in May of 1968. At the Democratic National Convention in 1968, there was a mega clash with Vietnam War protesters and police. So I wonder what's going to happen with Gaza war protesters, universities. We had the Paris student riots. There's a lot of reason to think that some of these trends could overlap right now with especially with the political climate we're in.
Saturn is very consolidated, organized, like formalizing of things, and Aries being anger and righteous rebellion in some cases. Yeah.
And here's a couple other interesting trends that happened all the way back to 1791 when Saturn was in Aries. When you think about the military and combative aspect of this sign, the passage of the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, December 15th, 1791.
Wow.
1939 was the landmark gun rights law that everyone still goes for now.
And that was Saturn and Aries.
Saturn and Aries, October 22nd, 1968, was the Gun Control Act that regulated the firearms industry. And so, in 1998 was the day that the NICS, the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, created a response to the passage of some handgun violence prevention acts. It became operations. So, and actually the guillotine was invented and performed for the first time while Saturn was in Aries, the ruler of the head, April 25th, 1792. So, there's this theme of, the right to bear arms, but also what protections do we put in place? And that is the United States has more guns than any country in the world, just out, that's so what's going to happen, so
I mean, Pisces, which Saturn is leaving, and Saturn also rules confinement, rules prisons and jails and hospitals and the prison industrial complex. I mean, everything like CCOT and all, and just even here in Trump's big idea of reopening Alcatraz. Actually, there's someone, I forgot who it is, who we follow, who did this whole diagram of how where Trump was watching Fox News also played the movie Escape from Alcatraz right after that.
I
And
saw that.
I was like, oh
Lord.
my God. Could it be that simple? But
By the way, the WNBA, the Women's National Basketball Association, played its first game at the Great Western Forum in Los Angeles on June 21st, 1997. So there's
there you
another
go. It's
girl power.
Yeah, lots of girl. I'm personally looking forward to the girl power era of it all. Actually,
woman power.
I got my job at Ms. Magazine from Gloria Steinem, who's an Aries, that brought me to New York when Saturn was an Aries too. So, I mean, it was
helped them build their first ever website.
Yeah, which was it
very
seen on Netscape Navigator or Internet Explorer. So, our Gen Xers will know what that means. But yeah, there's lots more to come ahead with Saturn and Aries. But just with hopefully some of the hidden things, Saturn and Pisces. I don't know, Aries is free and fiery, Pisces is watery. So I don't know, I feel like a lot of the things that have been hidden are going to continue bubbling up. We've been saying
really gained some grounds in mental health too. With Saturn and Pisces, there's been a lot of talk about trauma, but people are discovering a lot of new dimensions to their own neurological functioning. But I think we're going to see maybe some breakthroughs in things like treatments for narcissism, a recognition of it, or different ways of dealing with it.
People right now think there is no treatment for it, but who knows what Saturn and Neptune and Aries together can bring. And let's just like kind of close on saying how unique it is that Saturn and Neptune are both in Aries, because Saturn puts things into form, crystallizes, whereas Neptune dissolves form. Neptune wants to make everything vague and foggy and atmospheric, and Saturn wants definitions. And so it's
Neptune wants to lose track of time and go into Kairos, and Saturn is actually Chronos, the chronological ruler of time. So it's like dream time versus clock time. And they've been together in Pisces for the past few years. So now they're together in Aries for a few more years, and then Saturn moves on and they don't connect again for a long time. So it is a huge deal indeed. And I think we have a chance to put some structure behind our dreams. There was a lot of that happening behind the scenes for the last few years. As Saturn moves into Aries, I think we're going to see amazing inventions coming forth, new ideas, new thoughts, new concepts, new ways of running the show.
Out in the open too, that way. Like, so things that have been done secretly that have not been great could come out into the open too. But then things that have been percolating and marinating and gestating could turn into real amazing debuts. Netflix debuted, for example, like,
right.
Titanic, the movie, Harry Potter, never mind J.K. Rowling's transphobia. We're not going to touch that right now, but who would have thought? But still, these are enduring enterprises that are still here almost 30 years later. So Aries innovation really does stick when Saturn is there to back it up.
Before we go, we just want to also invite you, if you're interested in doing a personal reading with one of us. We have openings on our calendar. I think there's about a month wait, but maybe month and a half. So get on there fast, because they do fill up every time we share about that. And if you're interested in joining us for Summit Detroit, we'll be there June 5th through 8th for an incredible thought leader convergence. very interactive, amazing people. There's still time to apply. Go to astrostyle.com/events. And please, if you're listening, just hit that like, subscribe button on whatever platform you're on. And if you feel like giving us a 5-star review, that would also be amazing. That helps us get ourselves out there, get ourselves in the queue, share the cosmic goodness, and keep this going. So we'll be back again next week with more to talk about. We'll be steeped in these new cycles. Saturn will be in Aries, and we will be in that energy by then. So
will be interesting. Yes, indeed. All right. Well, have a great week and welcome Gemini season.
Happy birthday to all our gems out there. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to AstroTwins Radio. If today's episode gave you an aha moment, we'd be over the moon if you left us a 5-star review. It helps fellow astrology lovers find us. And make sure to hit subscribe and follow us on iTunes and Spotify so you never miss an episode. Want the full visual experience? You can also watch the video version on our YouTube at AstroTwins-TV. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at AstroTwins and head over to astrostyle.com to read your free daily, weekly, and monthly horoscope that we write for you with love. Until next time, move with intention and let the universe meet you there.